Caesar and Me may bear a strong resemblance to the Season 3 episode The Dummy, but the approach of this ventriloquist misadventure is very different. How did it contrast itself to an idea already done so well, and was it worth dragging Willie back out of his trunk for another role? Irish immigrant Jonathan West struggles to find gigs with his ventriloquist act in the United States. Little Caesar's charm, pizza, isn't translating on stage, and West starts to get desperate. Already behind in his rent with not even enough scratch for food, Jonathan starts taking suggestions from his talking dummy. Caesar is indeed alive and directs the poor Irishman to go about making money in a less honorable fashion since the entertainment industry isn't paying the bills. The landlady, Agnes, has sympathy for Mr. West and his situation, but her niece Susan retains a mean streak and seems determined to expose Jonathan, in addition to confirming her suspicions about Caesar. This episode was penned by first-time writer Adele T. Strassfield. She was producer William Frug's secretary during this time and pitched an idea he accepted. According to the Twilight Zone companion, Frug said he sort of wrote the script with her, but wanted Strassfield to have all the credit. She would go on to write 2 more television episodes in subsequent years before her death in 1977. Strassfield ended up being the first and only credited female writer on the original series, at least when it comes to the actual teleplay. Judging the writing on its own, the story isn't bad. It seems to lack an element or two that would make it exceptional, but Caesar and Me is an episode that a lot of fans seem to remember, and that has to count for something. Directing his first Zone installment was Robert Butler. Butler had a long career that spanned into the 21st century, including possibly this show's most controversial episode that we'll be talking about soon. There are a few sequences here that reveal his style. I especially like the way he shot West's break-ins and the hallway the Susan character strolled down. One shot follows her from the kitchen to the hallway in a slick little movement. Another possible first was the wipe transition at the start of that bit. I don't think I ever saw that on the show before. In his Blu-ray commentary track, Butler said that could have just been done to break up a bad cut of the same character in a different setting. Caesar isn't really shot to be creepy like Willie from The Dummy. He's more of a scheming nuisance. I think we lost out on some stylistic visuals because of that. Although, I do like how he moseys past Jonathan a few times, clearly moving around within the space he's occupying. Jackie Cooper is credited online as the voice of Caesar, while also playing West. I think he did a great job differentiating the voices.
You're gonna get rid of that shanty Irish routine. This is America.
What do you mean?
The streets are paved with gold, and it's sitting out there, waiting for us.
According to Robert Butler, Jonathan's whole Irish immigrant angle came from Cooper himself. The idea was incorporated into the shooting script to give West more sympathy. I think the accent actually worked pretty well. It's not perfect, but he mostly had a hold on it.
Yes, sir. He taught me my trade, as a matter of fact. And I came to your country to earn me fortune.
Most of the time. Cooper was best known as Perry White from the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and he had a great career for himself that started in the late 1920s as a child star. Suzanne Capito, also known as Morgan Brittany, had made a pair of other Zone appearances before this. Her character in Caesar and Me has got to be one of the most unlikable people in any TZ episode.
Jonathan can't find a job.
Oh, Susan, why don't you go find somebody else?
The truth hurts. Come on, say something. I dare you.
She's a little jerk, and she plays it well. It just seems a bit unnecessary to stack the deck against Jonathan so much. That kid hates his guts for no real reason. It reminded me of Judy Strangis from Season 4's The Bard. It's the nosy kid neighbor trope, but this time, Susan directly contributes to an amiable protagonist's downfall. The rest of the cast was fine. Gotta admit, I was surprised to see the Blues Brothers show up, though. Stafford Rep as the pawnbroker and Olin Soul as the employment agent turned up in previous Zone installments as well. Obeying Caesar's orders, Jonathan robs a local delicatessen and finally pays his rent. But when West is directed to attempt a bigger score at the karaoke club, the site of the duo's latest failed audition, they're caught by a night watchman. Jonathan and Caesar are able to talk their way out of the situation. The pair's luck runs out that evening after Susan phones in an anonymous tip upon seeing Jonathan return home late the previous night. The police show up asking questions about West's whereabouts, and the Irishman is caught in a lie. Distressed, he begs Caesar to tell them the truth, but the dummy remains silent and Jonathan is hauled away. When everyone else has left the room, Caesar calls over Susan, who's not surprised to discover the dummy's voice. Caesar and Susan agree to become partners in order to get out of their dumpy boarding house. And first things first, they have to take down Susan's Aunt Agnes. Caesar and Me is a passable effort, but it comes nowhere close to the dummy. I think making Jonathan so endearing was actually a detriment to the episode because we don't even see him try to stand up for himself. He's pleading with Caesar to speak instead of demanding it before being dragged off to prison. It's a well-performed scene by Jackie Cooper, but having this character caress his dummy like a child or something just made the ending more cruel. And screw that Susan character. Seriously, what a needlessly miserable wretch.
Such a nice man.
He's a no-good crook.
The bad guys' win this time around didn't feel earned. Either they should have let Cooper embrace a darker side, or things should have turned out a little less depressing for him. It was cool to see the same dummy used to portray Willie back on screen. He felt more like the Batman villain Scarface this time around, and a little closer to the mischievous nature of the Slappy character from Goosebumps. As I mentioned in my review of the dummy, Caesar/Willie is still supposedly in the care of David Copperfield at the International Museum and Library of the Conjuring Arts in Las Vegas. The concept carries more positive weight than negative, and it is a memorable installment. Yes, I have my issues with it, but it's a show that I'd still suggest checking out. Maybe have a double feature of this and the dummy for a night of fun-filled funny business in the Twilight Zone.